the fate.
This is the way. Truth is, I am Iron Man.
Tells me the most relentless.
Hello, critics, non-critics, and friends. Welcome to the Film Optix podcast, where we take a glance into blockbusters, indie films, and everything in between. I'm your host, Kristen, joined by my good friend / my co-host, Devin. And today, we're here to give our thoughts and reflections on A24's latest slasher film, Bodies. Something like that. Yeah, Bodies. It's what it's called. And before we begin today's episode, you can listen to our podcast on podcast platforms around the internet. That includes Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and more. And if you are a new or seasoned listener to the show, we would love to hear from you guys. Follow us on Instagram and follow us on Twitter at Film Optix. That is Optix with an X. Or you can email us at filmoptix@gmail.com for any movie-related questions. Devin, how the heck are you on this fantabulous Monday? You finally saw Bodies.
Yeah, went late last night with the sister, just kind of what fit into our schedule. It was like a 9:15 Sunday night. It's good old Cinemark.
You and these late night showings, I swear.
Sometimes you just got to squeeze it in.
It's so unheard. The last time I did a late night showing was for Black Panther. I'm pretty sure. I don't know, unless it's like a midnight release where I can gear up and get ready to go out for the day or for the night. I'm not seeing a movie past 7.
Past 7, wow.
Maybe 8 o'clock. 9:15 is pushing it. That's all I have to say.
You're really showing your generation here.
Hey, we're in the same generation, pal. So
I'm saying up past 7 though, so I guess.
I mean, I am too. It just depends, man. I just like to go to the movies early, like to have the rest of the day ahead of me, unless I'm going on if it's like a group of us where it's we're going to go out and we're going to watch this movie. If that just seems to be the time that we have to watch it, that's fine. But I'm not going by myself to a movie at 9:15 at night. Absolutely not. I just can't do it. But that's just me. But how's your week been otherwise? Or your weekend? You say you had a pretty nice weekend on our Sandman review. So
yeah, I got to eat a lot of Italian food. That's always a good thing until you step on the scales. But it's okay. You just gotta live with it.
That's why you go to the gym. That's why we go to the gym. That's why we go to the gym, ladies and gentlemen. So as I mentioned before, we're going to be giving our quick thoughts and reflections on A24's Bodies, their latest slasher horror movie. It's a very, very interesting one. So Devin, are you ready to just jump into this review here?
Just one quick note before we jump in. I'm on the Bodies MDB page, and it is filled with they/them ads. Just thought that was interesting.
Oh, no. I will say this is way better than they/them. Wow. That movie was something else. That's all I have to say. I watched it. I'm proud to say that I watched it all the way through. I did not turn it off like a lot of people do nowadays if they're not feeling the vibe of something, but yikes. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be right back after this introduction to Bodies.
You don't have to be nervous. I'm not nervous. Wow, they're so impressive. You're impressive.
They're gonna be obsessed with you. They're not as nihilistic as they look on the internet. You guys, this is me.
Oh, whoa.
Is this your first relationship? Oh no, you just kind of give that vibe.
Oh, you know that has weed in it, right?
Silence! Who wants to play Bodies?
So how do you play?
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you just heard a little snippet of the trailer from Bodies. The director of this movie is Halina Reijn and is written by Sarah DeLappe and Kristen Roupenian. And the story is as follows. When a group of rich 20-somethings plan a hurricane party, at a remote family mansion. A party game turns into kind of like a fresh and funny party game. Kind of goes wrong, pretty much. That's pretty much what it's all about. It's all about the backstabbing, the fake friends, and this huge party, this hurricane party that goes very, very wrong. And the cast is as follows. We have Maria Bakalova coming back. I actually did not recognize her in this movie at all until the very end.
How dare you not recognize her?
I'm sorry. I was... forgive me for sure. It also stars Rachel Sennott and Amandla Stenberg as well. So, I mean, and of course, Mr. Pete Davidson makes an appearance in this movie. So that's very, very exciting. So the way this is going to go down, everyone, we're going to get into our initial reactions, which is our non-spoiler section. Then we'll kind of dip into spoilers. There's a few here. One major spoiler. It's a pretty interesting twist. Then we'll mention some Easter eggs along the way and close out with our final thoughts in our ratings. So really quick, I'm going to pass it over to Devin so we can give his initial reactions to Bodies.
Yeah, I went in this one with pretty high hopes. Obviously, A24 is well known for just putting out quality movies over and over again, especially in the horror genre. Like, they've just killed it. Everything from Midsummer to Hereditary, just everything they put out seems to be a hit. But this one just didn't really work for me. I love Amandla Stenberg. I think she's amazing. Maria Bakalova, obviously. I recognize her immediately because I'm a fan, apparently. But I like Pete Davidson. I feel like a lot of people don't, but I've always liked him. I like King of Staten Island. We both really liked, and the one that was on Hulu that I'm blanking on right now. But
what was it? It was Big Time Adolescence or something.
Yeah. Big Time Adolescence. So, yeah, I was a fan of that one, and he just kind of gets a bad rap because he's just super famous, and I guess people think that's annoying. But for me, it really is just it's a Gen Z satire, and at the end of the day, that's kind of all it is. It didn't really do much else for me to kind of stand out as entertaining or like any standout moments throughout the movie, because you get a bunch of jokes, obviously, about these Zoomers just going around doing crazy things, being annoying because that's what they do. But then there's not really any kills. There's no slashing. There's no like horror. There's no thrills. There's just not much else on the table here. The movie just kind of keeps chugging along with these annoying, idiotic characters on purpose. I get it. It's supposed to be a satire, but just nothing really happens at the end of the day. And I feel like when stuff kind of does happen, when there are some scuffles and some fights, then the camera work just kind of goes all over the place and you can't even tell what's going on. So that's kind of where it fell for me. And that's the thing. That's the beauty of A24. They don't put out stuff for general audiences. They don't want everybody to like their movies. They know what they like and they put out quality movies, but they're not always going to work. And this one just didn't work out for me.
All right, fair enough, man. I mean, I feel like I'm a little bit higher on the totem pole. I really love the satire here. Like you said, it is a bunch of Zoomers going around, and like you said, they are being annoying on purpose because it's like, you know, the jokes that they put out there and like the lines and the dialogue between these characters, the interactions that they're having are it's like, okay, it's very much of a first world problem movie.
Yeah, they're having a hurricane party. That's all you need to hear. It's like in Parasite when the family celebrates the rainfall and everyone else is being tortured.
Right. And that's the thing. When it comes to this movie, I mean, I've read a review where they were saying how this is kind of like Scream meets Mean Girls, which I thought was pretty on the head for sure. But I will agree, there's a lot of self-inflicting bodily like harm going on here within this movie. Can't say that there is a specific killer per se. I will say that I wouldn't really call this like a slasher, but
you kind of need slashing for it to be called a slasher.
Yeah, I mean, and they/them, they were, that was, anyway, I'm getting off track here. With this movie, I really did like it. I love the satire. I loved the jokes that they made. They made a pretty hysterical joke about podcasting in this as well, which I found hilarious. The people in that one definitely hit home for me, for sure. For us all together, I was like, it's about time somebody had some kind of podcast reference in there. But yeah, it really is, there's a lot of people meeting on Tinder, and it's just how Zoomers, the Gen Z is like this is I don't think everyone's going to like this movie, but I know people who do. I think it's one of my favorite horror movies of the year so far. Just because of the satire. There's a really big twist at the end, which I was like, okay, I thought it was hilarious. But definitely some standouts for me in this the entire cast was great. I mean, you had Maria playing B. I think she was probably my favorite character. You had Amandla playing Sophie. Then Rachel Sennott playing Alice. It really was a great group of people, coming together. Of course, we have Pete Davidson in this movie as well. He feels right at home with something like this. It was just a bunch of, like you said, like it's a bunch of 20-year-olds still acting like they're teenagers. And that's when I tweeted out, I'm like, it feels like a teen movie, because it kind of is, even though these kids are in college or, they're going through college, like they still feel like they're in high school. Like
if it's Euphoria High School, then yeah, a lot of drugs and sex and
yeah, for sure. But yeah, there's a lot of bad blood in this group, and it all comes out in a very not predictable way, but a lot of things in this movie start to build up for sure. And we see that throughout the film. But those are just my initial reactions. I went on a little bit of a tangent there. Devin, is there anything else you wanted to mention in our non-spoiler section before I feel like there's only one real big thing to spoil here.
Yeah, that's just kind of one thing to talk about.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is your first spoiler warning for Bodies, Bodies, Bodies again. That is your second spoiler warning for Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. So if you haven't seen it, definitely check it out. I think it is worth the watch. It's not this traditional slasher movie, but it does its own thing and it has its own identity. But let's get into the big twist. So within the movie, this whole thing kicks off when they're playing this game called Bodies, 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 which has nothing to do with actually killing people. It's kind of like playing
it's basically Werewolf.
Yeah.
Or Among Us.
Right.
Among Us for the Zoomers out there.
Exactly. Yeah. Among Us for and Werewolf for the Zoomers out there for sure. And Pete Davidson's character is just found dead outside with his throat slashed. And fast forward, through the entire movie, they're trying to figure out who killed him. There's only X amount of people in this entire house, unless there's someone else on the outside that they don't know about, which they try to allude to. And then as the movie goes on, all these secrets and demons between these friends, all this bad blood starts coming out. Not literal demons, just, yeah. But all this bad blood starts coming out between these characters. And at the very end of the movie, you find out that Pete Davidson accidentally killed himself trying to perform a TikTok.
Yeah, I was also going to mention, you keep calling him Pete Davidson because that's just kind of what the character felt like, but his name is David, and in my headcanon, his name is David Peetson. That's kind of what I wanted his name to be in the movie.
That actually would have been very funny. That would have been hilarious. Maybe we can reach out and be like, yeah, like what was David's last name? I just need to know.
It just makes sense.
Peetson?
It's just in this alternate universe. Yeah, it ends with him offing himself. Star Wars guy style. He just slits his own throat, and then like right after that happened, I turned to my sister and I was like, "That's like that was basically a 90-minute Pete Davidson SNL sketch." Like, that's what it ended up being.
But it was so funny. I'm like, okay. I'm like, they're going to find his phone. And as soon as I saw the TikTok, I knew what was going to happen. I'm like, no way. Like, I like how it was able to find its own identity, though. That's the one thing I like. I mean, it may seem silly to a lot of people, but I thought it was a hilarious twist. Not like the best in the world, but it's just like, that's so A24 that, and like this movie kind of just ends because, you know, there is the buildup between Sophie and B, who, you know, they're new lovers, but you know, Sophie had a drug problem, and I will say that they kind of touch on something very important between Pete's character, or David's character, Pete Davidson's character, and Sophie.
David Peterson.
Yeah. David Peterson. Because they were both addicted to coke. Sophie went away for a while to get help, but Pete Davidson's character did not. And I did find that it was interesting how they actually call that out, where it's like, oh, Sophie was saying, so, you know, when I do something, it's a drug problem, but when Pete does it, you know, it's just.
But they were saying she almost died a couple times, though. We don't know if David ever got to that point.
That is very, very true. So yeah, we're given so much backstory between these friends, and they've known each other forever. But it seems like a group of friends who probably should have stopped being friends a long time ago. Because, you know, like when you get older, sometimes you just you outgrow certain friends. This feels like a group of people, minus B, of course, who have been with each other since.
And Greg.
And Greg, yes. Poor Greg. I'm just gonna say, man, B knocked the crap out of him. I was like, wow, that's crazy. But yeah, for the most of these 20-something-year-old rich kids.
I just realized he's Ronan from Guardians of the Galaxy.
Is he really?
Yeah, Lee Pace.
Did not know that. He was in The Hobbit as well. Interesting. Yeah. Mr. Greg Lee Pace. Yeah. Well, there you go. Good on you, Greg. Good on you. Yeah, he was running Captain Marvel. That's right. He was in Weathering with You. I knew I liked this guy. But yeah, it definitely feels like there is these group of 20-something-year-olds, because we don't really know how old they are, but we know they're kind of in their college years. It seems that they were friends for so long, and they never really outgrew each other. Like, they kind of just stuck together, and it's like they've known each other for so long. They know each other's quirks. They know each other's, you know, faults, their secrets, pretty much their entire childhood. But I mean, things start to kind of, you know, swell up in a way, which I did like how everything started to come out, because, you know, there were a lot of elephants in the room while they were trying to figure out what was going on. I think that's what I liked about it more so, because it was not a coming of age story, but there was a lot of adolescence going on here for 20-something-year-olds, for sure. But a lot of the things that they were saying within the script, you know, the dialogue interactions, it was very Gen Z. Just like, I think Rachel's character said she had body dysmorphia or something, and then the other girl, the other black girl, actually I'm not seeing her on IMDb, she was like rolling her eyes because she like hate listens to Alice's, or Rachel's character Alice's podcast, and she's like, it's a lot of hard work. You have to schedule and record and edit. I was like, yes, Alice, preach on it. But I thought it was a very entertaining movie at the end of the day. But let's get into our final thoughts here. Devin, did you have anything you wanted to add before we get into final thoughts, or do you want to kind of just...
We could end abruptly, just like the movie did.
I have cell service. So I looked up borderline. I think she was talking about borderline personality disorder.
Yeah. Because
B just kept saying borderline. I was like, what is that? And I was like, I guess it could be borderline personality disorder, but it was kind of heartbreaking, though. I will say it was. I mean, you know, it's, you know, young, like teen love or whatever, but it was kind of heartbreaking to see B go through everything that she did, her being the
Just
outsider.
the power of Maria Bakalova.
Yeah. And, everyone quickly judging her like, oh, you might be the killer. You might be the person who killed Pete Davidson. And it's like, we literally followed her throughout the entire movie. I was like, there's no way she's the killer. And then the other girls ended up being super crazy. I'm not finding her on IMDb, but
Jordan.
the other Jordan. Yeah, that's right. What was the character? What was the actor's name?
Ihala Harold.
Okay. Yeah, I just didn't have, I had IMDb pulled up and not Rotten Tomatoes, but yeah, I mean, there was something there, when it comes to, the relationship
She was in
stuff.
Plan B.
Was she really? Oh, I did not know that. I'll have to check that out. But yeah, like you feel for the characters a bit because, but it is kind of like how relationships are nowadays with Gen Z or just in general, where, you have Pete Davidson's character, and his girlfriend where, they had kind of revealed that, they had never been intimate with each other. But, Pete's character wasn't like all for like putting out their business like that. And then, his girlfriend, Emma, who was, just kind of with whoever just to be with them. And they were kind of just, a lot of backstabbing, a lot of bad blood, Mean Girls stuff. I still think Mean Girls was worse because that was insane. But yeah, this is definitely like a modern age, like Mean Girls horror movie, in a way. But those are just my final thoughts. Devin, what are yours?
What was your score?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm going to give this like a solid 84. I'll give it 84. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. This is probably the first time we are this far off since Dune, probably, I would guess.
I think so. Oh, I love Dune so much.
It's interesting whenever this happens, but yeah, I mentioned before, I just don't think it really worked for me because there wasn't a lot that really happened. If you really zoom out and kind of look at everything, especially when they kind of market it as a slasher, like horror type movie, but it really isn't that. It really is just, it leans heavily on the Zoomer satire, and that's like its main focus throughout. So I came out a little disappointed just because it didn't really work for me. It wasn't really what I was expecting. I'll give it like a 55.
Wow. 55? Devin.
I mean, there was a few chuckles here and there. I mean, in my row in the theater, most of them left like halfway through. Most of the people. It was actually a pretty full theater for that time.
I was almost lucky enough to have the entire theater by myself. But at the last second, somebody walked in. I was like, dang it. I was actually looking forward to having theater to myself. But it was, man, oh man. I was like, oh my gosh, this is happening. I'm like, all of the trailers were playing. Like they finished all that up. Nicole Kidman came and said her goodbyes with that with that marketing piece. And then like maybe 2 minutes in the movie, someone comes in and walks in. I was like, But yeah, I didn't have a lot of people come from. I watched it at like 4 p.m. on a Friday. And I mean, granted, 4 p.m. is not necessarily like peak time to be watching a movie, but there was maybe 5 of us total. But there was like a group of people that kept talking the entire time. I almost left because like I kind of just wanted to watch the movie, but then they like magically just shut up. So I was like, I'll stay. But yeah,
there were a lot of people in my theater just kind of straight up yelling at I forgot her name, but the podcast character, just like yelling at her on the screen because she was so annoying.
She was pretty annoying for sure. But hey, she puts a lot of work into her podcast, so I will give her all the respect in the world for sure. So wow, 55, Devin. Man.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, definitely higher than they / them.
Oh yeah. Yeah. For sure. Man, oh man. I never again. That is literally the worst movie of the year in my book. It's like so far. Like Man, and they tried. They tried.
They're still trying.
Still trying. Yeah, with all these ads out here. Oh, Peacock. At least they have the black phone. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can watch it for free.
Yeah. With ads, but I might revisit that one during the spooky season. We'll see. I still gotta watch Bly Manor. That's the one thing I gotta watch. That's going to be on the top of the list. But with all that said, that pretty much concludes our review here of Bodies. And if you've liked what you've heard on today's episode, please subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast platform of choice, and make sure to share an episode of our podcast with a friend, whether it be your mother, your brother, your lover, whoever it may be. Make sure to share an episode of the Film Optix podcast with a movie lover in need. Really, really quick, what is coming up on the podcast? We're going to be covering some She-Hulk coming up here. That's hitting Disney Plus later this week on Wednesday. I'm also working on pumping out our Avatar: The Last Airbender Book to Earth review. It's going to be very, very exciting for you guys. I'm very excited to drop that out there. We went for almost 2 hours. It was more like an hour and 30 minutes, but hopefully, with editing and whatnot, I can chunk that down just a little bit. And also, if Devin's up for it, it's Sunday, baby. House of the Dragon starting to come out. All I ask, one episode we can record and see how you like it. Because I know I'm going to love it, but at least one episode, at least the premiere. The premiere. One fantasy thing. That's all I'm asking. Hey, it's either that or Lord of the Rings. Take your pick.
Hunger Games. That's my fantasy.
Hunger Games. Yeah. We had some pretty big Hunger Game news. Viola Davis coming in to play the villain. I'm very excited for that. I was already very excited. Now I'm like you have my curiosity. Now you have my attention.
Well, I guess that's not really fantasy. Kind of. I don't know.
Well, it's like dystopian fan. Yeah. It's dystopian. Kind of like Maze Runner. Almost kind of like Star Wars without the sci-fi. Well, it's sci-fi, but it's very odd. I don't really know where that would fit. There are some fantasy elements there though. With all that said, really quick, what's out now? We just dropped our Sandman review that is now up on the podcast. It's streaming on Netflix as well as our Bullet Chain review, our Prey review, and our Nope review as well. It's going to be pretty busy these next few months, but we're still trying to figure out what to do with She-Hulk and Andor. We're not sure if we're literally going to cover every single one, because that's a lot. As much as I want to. 6 episodes is one thing, but Andor is 12 episodes. She-Hulk is 13 or something like that. That's a lot to go through. So we'll figure out a way to cover everything. We might do the first 3 of each, and then we might, disperse and come back to it later, kind of how we did with our Obi-Wan Kenobi review. But we'll just have to wait and see. But with all that said, we hope you guys have a great day, and we'll see you later. And that's a wrap for today. Thank you all for listening. And if you enjoy the show, leave us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And follow us on Twitter and Instagram to stay in the know. That was Devin. My name is Kristen. We'll see you guys in the next one.
Peace.